Hi guys, so today's task, what we are going to do is to build our topology for Eigrp. So we have almost 4 or 5 labs which I will try to record today, and so that these are foundation labs, right? So these are the basic Eigrp configuration labs which I'm going to do right in front of you so that you can follow along if you want to. I'm using Eigrp Pro for this, as I was using, if you have looked at my previous videos of DMVP, and I was using the same. So let me add let's use because I wanted to use serial interfaces. So you can see that the serial interfaces are available either in 7206 Dynamics or IOL. So I'm going to use IOL because that will be easier. So I will use 4 of them, and the image I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use one serial port, and that's it. So 4 routers. So I'm going to connect router 1 with router 2 with router 3 and with router 4. Okay, so let's connect them. So let's connect them easily. So let's connect them via serial 1 by 2 to serial 1 by 1. Let's say like this, right? And if we can select here 2 to 3, let's select 1 by 3, and on 3 let's select 1 by 2. So that is going to 2, that is going to 3. So save it, and from 3 to 4, let's see if we can select 1 by we don't have 1 by 4. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select on router 4 I'm going to select 1 by 3, and because that's going to 3, and on router 3 I'm going to select 1 by 0, so that that will be our 4th cable. Okay, so I will save it down here. So that's our setup, and what I will do, I will stretch it out so that we can mark few things here, because before we attempt to do anything we have to make sure that what's our plan is, right? So let's do some text. So let's write down that we should have a loopback, right? We should have loopback 0 on all of these. That would be for router 1 that would be 1.1.1, but that will be /8. Okay, so I'm gonna put this guy right here, and then, or I can put it right here, that would be better. So this is loopback here. I can duplicate this guy, I can put it on here because I need loopback on all of them. So, and as I said, this is going to be really easy labs, so people for CCNA and CCNP, they can follow along if they want. So you can see this is 2.2. Once it's done, it's easy to edit. This will be 3.3, and this will be 4.4. Come on, not letting me select. Okay, I'm selected, so let's do 4.4. Okay, and then the network between them. Okay, so let's do the network between them. Let's add a text. Come on. Okay, so this time I will do, let's say between 1 and 2 I will say 12.1.1.0/24, and what I would do bold, just for the sake of us. Oh, come on. Oh, come on, let me grab. Okay, here we go. So that's the network 12.1.1.0. Let's duplicate it. Let's create this one as 23, between 2 and 3, same thing, and then duplicate this guy as 34, right? So this is a pretty easy, pretty basic lab. So we have 12, we have 23, and we have 34. We have loopbacks. That's it. We're done with the with our lab topology and physical setup. So let's just start all the nodes. So once all the nodes started, let's grab them. Oh, I don't want to use this guy, so let me log out, because I want to use native console. So let's see if I can use native console. Yep, I can. So I'm gonna close my other lab just for the sake of simplicity, so that we have router 1, we have router 2, we have router 3, and we have router 4. So we have all the routers, and I have my base configuration written somewhere. So I'm going to copy this to all of them, right? So we'll wait for the routers to boot. So this is the process. I wanted to show you guys everything. That's why I'm recording everything. Otherwise I could have recorded all this prior to this, prior to record. So let's paste it. So this is all gone. So on router 1 we will say router 1, on router 2 we'll say router 2, on router 3 we'll say router 3, and on router 4 we'll say router 4. We'll do and right, and usually what I do is that I export, right? So what I do, I go to my startup config. You see there's nothing right now, so so the default is like this. I wanted to keep my default as what I've showed you here. So if I export it, export all configs, okay. So now if I go to my startup config, you see that now it's there, so I can mark it off, and this is the default. So this has all my login information and all that, right? There's no IP addressing or anything. What I can do while I'm here, I can add a config set, and I can say IP addressing. Yeah, I do that right every time. IP addressing, and oh, I have to add it. IP addressing, add. So now I have IP addressing, so I can move on to that one, right? And then I can set. So this is the set all nodes to config set. So I'm going to set it up. So now it's IP addressing setup is done. So what I will do, that when I do IP addressing here on all of them, what will happen is that when I export again, it will go into IP addressing tab, right? So that I will have different config sets for different steps. Okay, so that is our first task. What we have to do, we have to make sure that we have our IP addressing set up and we can ping our neighbors. So we always start with that, right? So let's start with the router 1. So first we have to go into interface serial 1/2, IP address 12.1.1.2, 255.255.255.0, no shut, and the loopback. Okay, so we can do that in our notepad as well, and we can do that here. It really doesn't matter. So see, I write it down here. Then we'll go to serial 1/1, IP address 12.1.1, this one is 255.255.255.0, no shared interface loopback 0, IP address 2. So you see, that's pretty easy task, and it's quick. The only thing I kept it this way is that I wanted to add this one interface. So let's do that. 1/3, 23.1.1.2, 255.255.255.0, no shut and right. So let's go to 3. Interface serial 1/2, IP address 3, 1/0 for router 4. 3, 255.255. So that is a pretty lame task, right? Doing an IP addressing and all that. Then let me do the loopback. And write it down. So let's move on. 1/3, IP address 34.4, So you can see that now we have our addressing done, right? 4.4.4 to 5.6. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to export it again because I wrote it down. So I'm going to export. So as soon as I export all configs, and if we go back and look at our startup config, you will see something. So when I'm here, if I look at router 1, you will see that now I have my IP addressing there, and my serial interface IP address is there as well, right? So that's the benefit of using Pro version, that I can have multiple sets of if not, use your notepad, put all the configs there step by step, and then you can reuse it at the later time, right? So let's move on. Let's configure Eigrp on these routers. So let's add a config set base Eigrp. Base Eigrp, right? Add it down, select it, set it, and close it. So that now whatever we're going to do and export it will be a Eigrp thing. Okay. So to enable Eigrp, that's pretty easy format. So usually what I do show IP interface brief exclude assigned, so that I will have the IP address in front of me. And what I do is that I will say router Eigrp 100 and then the network statement, because I'm using a 15 and above, right? So auto summarization is off by default, so that's not going to work here. That's good. Usually we do that, right? So we'll say network, what we have there. Okay, so here I have made a mistake, and you can point it out that we have made a mistake of 12.1.1. They put it 2 on 1. So let me fix that pretty quickly. Right, and now if I have changed it here, so what I can do is that I can go to my startup config. I can go on router 1, and I can change it here as well. By literally typing it here. So if you, because I'm on base, so let's go to IP addressing. Let's go to router 1. So you see I've changed it here. So let me change it here to 1. I can save it so that I don't have to export and save it again. Right? So now it's saved. So make sure the router 2 is fine. So the mistake I made, and you guys must have noticed, is that I never pinged my neighbors, right? So I always suggest doing that. So let's do network statement. So router Eigrp 100, network 12.1.1.1, and so I just wanted to initialize my Eigrp for that on that interface, right? So that's the idea, and this is the best practice to enable it. And then we do network 1.1.1.0.0.0, and that's it. So now we have Eigrp running. So I'm going to do the same on router 2. So if I do show IP interface brief exclude assigned, I will have all my addresses, and then with that address I can go and do router Eigrp 100, network 12.1.1.2, and then network 23.1.1.2, and then network 2.2.2.2. So I'm going to write it down as well. You see I didn't write it down here, so let me write it down here as well. And as soon as I did that, you see that our neighbor relationship came up, right? And that's good. So let's do it on router 3, show IP interface brief exclude assign. And now if I go to Eigrp 100, remember this autonomous system number must match, right? So we are matching it, and then we will do network 34.1.1.3, and then network 23.1.1.3, and then network 3.3.3, right? So that's pretty easy task, and we see that we have a neighbor here as well. Once we do on router 4, we will have all our neighbor relationship coming up. So let's do router Eigrp 100, network 34.1.1.4, and network 4.4.4.0. Okay. So now if I look at show IP Eigrp neighbor command, which show me my neighbors, I can see that router 4 has one neighbor, right? And then router 3 has two neighbors, which is router 4 and router 2. Remember the way I am addressing myself. I'm making sure that I know by looking at the IP which router we are talking about. And if I look at router 2, I have two neighbors here as well, right? And if I look at router 1, I should have one neighbor here as well, right? So that's how you do the router statements to enable the Eigrp. Now let's move on and see what is in this output, which is important for us, right? So if you look, we have the H, which is the serial number, that this is the first neighbor. So it starts with 0. This is our first neighbor. If you look at order 2, our first neighbor was 3, and then our second neighbor was 1. And if you look, that's actually not true, right? Our first neighbor should be 12. So yeah, our first neighbor was 12. Sorry, I looked at the wrong way. So yeah, first neighbor is right. As soon as we did that, it came up. So 0, it starts with 0. And let's move on to see what are the hold seconds. So Eigrp has a hello and a dead timer, right? So what happens is that by default, if I look at the show IP Eigrp protocol, you will see. So if you look at here, you will see that we have active timer, we have other timer, we have hold timer for NSF, but it doesn't tell me what is my timer value for the protocol itself, right? So that's the issue. But if you look at show IP, if you look show run all section router Eigrp, you will see that in new OSs you can see the default values by running show run all. So if you look at it, you will see that we have our even in this one, it doesn't show us that what are the default values for the hold time and the hello time, right? But if you look at show IP Eigrp neighbors, the default, you will see that every 5 seconds it will be sending the hello, and the 3 times of that is the hold time. So what we will do, we will change that, and this has to be changed inside the interface level. So this command, if you want to change the hello and dead timer, honestly you will not do this in production. This is just for the lab purposes that we wanted to see how this is gonna work. So let's go inside the serial interface and do IP hello. So first we change the hello interval and hello interval for Eigrp. If you do so, there's no other option. There's like this command is just for Eigrp, right? So and now it's asking us that how many seconds between hello transmission. So by default is 5. So let's put 30. Just increasing it, right? Because we are not, this is not a production network. The network is not flapping that much, so we are fine. So now if we have changed the hello interval, then we must change the hold time, because now if you look at the show IP Eigrp neighbor, you see there should be no difference on this side. But if I go on router 2, you see it went down, right? And if you look at show IP Eigrp neighbor here, you see it's still waiting that the dead timer is still set to 15 seconds, right? So it's waiting for 15 seconds, and now it's up because I sent a hello in 120 seconds. So I have to change my dead timer. So for the dead timer is the hold time for Eigrp 100, and then I can define whatever the value is. So let's say 30 multiplied by 4 is 120, right? So 4 times I do that, right? So I have done this here. My agency came up, and if I look at my neighbor, my neighbor is still 3 to 5. So this is for my neighbor, right? This is for my neighbor. This information which you see here is solely for my neighbor. This is not for me. But if you look at my neighbor, now my neighbor has different time for myself, which is router 1. So if you look, this guy has now different value, which is router 1 has a different value. So when you set up hold time or hello time for EIGRP, actually you are telling your neighbor that for how long you need to wait for me. And then the time router 2 is sending to router 1, router 1 will wait for that period of time for router 2, and this time is not for router 1. This hold second or the hello time is the neighbor time, in other words, right? So this is how you can do that, and you can do that on all the interfaces everywhere. Usually it should be consistent throughout your topology, right? So we can do that. So let's do that. Interface serial 1 by 1 IP low interval for 30 and IP hold time for EIGRP 100 is 120, and I have to repeat that for 1 by 2, or sorry, 1 by 3 in this case. So this is hello, this is hold, right? So I can say this guy, or this is LAB1. You can say I should rename it to LAB1. Okay, so this is router 1, router 2, and then let's go to router 3. Do the same thing inside the interface. We can say IP hello interval for EIGRP 100 is 30 and IP hold interval, actually hold time for EIGRP 100 is 120, right? And then do the same for 1 by 2. Save it. So everywhere we go, we see that information. 1 by 3, and we do the same. Did I put it in the right way? 1 by 0, 1 by 2. Yeah, this is correct. So let's do that here. IP hello interval for EIGRP 100 is 30. IP hold timer, right? No, time. Hold time for EIGRP 100 is 120. And that's how you set it up. You change the hello time, hello interval, and the hold interval for routers within your topology, right? So now if you look, now you can see that information more because you have changed it. So you can see show IP EIGRP neighbor detail, and there you will see here, not here, but show IP EIGRP interface. Let's take interface here 1 by 2, and let's do the detail. If we can we do detail? No. Interfaces, if we move that, I think we have details. Yeah, we have details. So we are interested in serial 1 by 2, and here you can see hello interval and hold time interval. Split horizon is enabled. Blah blah blah. Nothing important here. So you see these are the two most important information you can get from here, which is show IP EIGRP interfaces detail command, which tells you mostly about everything in this one. The other thing, you can see that the authentication is not set, so we can set the authentication if we want to. So let's move on to other tasks, right? So let's say the other important thing about EIGRP which people discuss is about the metric, right? So if you look at the route for EIGRP, right now I'm receiving all the loopbacks plus the two transit network for route between router 2 and 3 and between router 3 and 4 on here, right? And if I look at the detail of this one, so if I look at the EIGRP topology table, you can see that these are the networks coming in, and if I want to see the details of this network, I can say show IP EIGRP topology for this network, and this tells me what is the minimum bandwidth on throughout the path, what is the total delay, right? What is the reliability, whatever. But by default, the values which are used, show IP protocol, if you do that, by default the value which they use is K1, and K3. These are the metric weight values, right? These are the metric weight values which is in the formula, and the formula is pretty straightforward one. Let me show you. The formula is which is, if I am not wrong, it's K1 multiplied by bandwidth, right? And then if I remember correctly, we have to add the K2 value, which we have to multiply by bandwidth and divide by 256 and then subtract load from it, right? So this is one thing, and then we have to plus K3 and we multiply it by load, and that is goes to, that is fine. Then we will go to multiply it, the whole thing, with 256. So this is the formula which use bandwidth and delay. The reason we're using K2 because it has bandwidth, right? That's the reason I'm showing you here. Now if K5 is not equals to 0, then the additional operation is required, which is if K5 is not 0, but by default it's 0, right? So if it is not 0, then we have to do K5 plus divided by K4, right, which is reliability plus reliability, whatever the value of the reliability is. So this is what we have if K5 is not 0. Okay, so if you want to have only bandwidth as that, we need to make sure that our K value is being changed, right? So we have to make sure that our K3 value, which is the delay, has to be 0. Right, and this is not load, guys, this is delay. So this is delay, right? So if you want to do that, we need to go on to the router. So let's do again. So show IP route Eigrp 2.0.0.0. So this, not Eigrp, sorry. So if you look at this one, we can see what the metric is, and we can see what all the information, we can see it here, right? Now if we change the value, right, if we change the value, then we will see something different, right? So but again, if you are changing the metric weight on one router, you have to change it on all the routers. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do it globally. So I'm going to send it to everybody. So, and this is under the router menu, so router Eigrp 100, and then we'll say metric weights, and then the first value is 0 because that's a TOS value, and Cisco only supports 0. 1 is the bandwidth, and everything else is 0. So these are 5 values, right? So bandwidth, load, delay, reliability, and MTU. And if I do this, the value got changed. And if I look at the same value here, I have to wait. Right now the network is down. We have to wait. Remember, the hello time is, we increase the hello time, so that is the reason we have to wait a bit. Now it's up, right? So when it's up, let's do it again. So now you can see that the value has changed to 165. Right, guys? So you can put it into the formula and get the values of however you want to get it. So from 22, it moved to 16 because now it's not taking consideration the delay. So that is it for lab 1. We will be doing more on Eigrp metrics in the next one. Okay, have a good one, guys.